Damn you for making me doubt my own worth. My name is Donna Calloway. I fix broken air conditioners, until the day I realized my own family saw me as the one that needed fixing. What happened next? Let's just say one dinner invitation changed everything. Or rather, what wasn't on the table spoke louder than who was. My name is Donna Calloway. I'm 32 years old, living in Portland, Oregon, and I run a small residential HVAC maintenance company. It's not a job people find glamorous. There are no glossy office buildings, no business cards with gold trim, no LinkedIn posts about executive leadership. I wear work boots, not heels. My hands are rough. I come home smelling like Freon and ductwork more often than not. But every piece of that business, I built it myself. From scratch. 10 years ago, I was hauling busted compressors in the back of a borrowed truck and patching together invoices from a second-hand laptop. Now I employ 6 people, own 3 vans, and carry maintenance contracts with some of the most trusted local property managers in the city. Is it flashy? No. Is it mine? Absolutely. And that's always been enough, for me. Well, almost enough, because no matter how many checks I cash or how many families I keep warm in the winter, there's still one place I've never really felt seen. My own family. Growing up, I was the dependable one. Not the brilliant one, not the charming one, just Donna. I never made a fuss. When Dad got sick, I was the one who learned how to do oil changes and fix the gutters. When Brittany, my younger sister, wanted to go to college out of state, I picked up weekend shifts, saved every dime, and paid her tuition without blinking. She got into Columbia. Everyone was proud. Mom talked about it for weeks. Not once did she mention who was footing the bill. But I didn't care then. Or at least I told myself I didn't. I had a business to run, employees to protect, and more importantly, a sense of purpose. I didn't need anyone to clap for. Still, sometimes when the family got together and conversations drifted toward careers and life paths, I'd find myself quiet, watching. Donna works with air conditioners, right? Someone would say, and my mom would give that little nod, not dismissive, just minimizing, as if I was a good footnote, but never the headline. I tried not to let it sting. I had my own life. I didn't need applause, or did I? It's strange the way that question crept in more often as the holidays approached. This Thanksgiving was no different, except somehow it felt more tender, like something fragile waiting to be broken. The business was officially closed for the holiday. I'd just wrapped up a late job, a last-minute call from an elderly client with a furnace issue. The sky was fading into that dusky lavender that always reminded me of childhood car rides home. My van was warm. The wine bottle I'd picked up from a fancy shop sat next to me on the passenger seat, one of those deep red blends with a cork and real wax seal. We always had Thanksgiving at Mom's house. Ever since Dad passed, it became our tradition. Brittany flew in, Mom made that massive turkey with 3 types of stuffing, and everyone showed up. And I always showed up, every single year. As I drove through the quiet streets of Northeast Portland, a soft buzz broke the silence. My phone lit up. Mom, I smiled instinctively. Hi Mom, I said, switching to Bluetooth. I'm on my way home. Want me to bring apple pie or mashed potatoes this year? There was a long silence, longer than usual. Then she spoke. Her voice was gentle but off, like she was holding something back. Donna, there's something I want to tell you, and I hope you'll understand. My fingers tightened around the steering wheel. Understand what? I frowned. Mom? I said, trying to sound casual. You still there? Another pause. Then finally, I think maybe this year you shouldn't come to Thanksgiving. The world slowed. I blinked at the windshield, watching the traffic light ahead go green, though my foot stayed frozen on the brake. Wait, what? I asked, my voice rising involuntarily. It's just that... She sighed, stretching the word like it hurt her throat. Mason, Brittany's boyfriend, he's bringing his parents this year. They're very traditional, and Brittany wants everything to feel a bit more formal. There it was, that word, formal, as if my presence alone disrupted some sacred image of elegance they were trying to stage. You mean I'm not welcome, I said quietly. You mean I don't fit the picture. No, Donna, of course not, she rushed. Of course you're family. It's just what? I could feel my heart pounding now, each beat like a hammer in my throat, because I'm not in a suit? Because I fix things for a living instead of giving speeches at fundraisers? Don't make this more difficult than it needs to be, she said. Her voice took on that delicate softness I'd heard too many times before. The one she used when she knew she was saying something hurtful but wanted me to take it like a compliment. I swallowed hard, bitterness crawling up my chest like acid. "Do you remember who paid for Brittany's first year at Columbia?" I asked. Silence. "Or the second year? The third?" I continued, my voice shaking. "Do you remember who skipped their own rent for 2 months so she could have a single dorm instead of sharing with 4 strangers?" "Donna," she said, weakly. "She wants it to look formal, right?" I said, almost laughing at the absurdity. "So I guess a woman who works with her hands, who wears steel-toed boots instead of heels, doesn't quite photograph well in the holiday family portrait?" "It's just one evening," Mom said, almost whispering now. "We can always do a brunch next week, just us. Just us. Like a consolation prize. Like leftovers scraped into Tupperware." I didn't yell. I didn't sob. I didn't beg her to change her mind. Instead, I drove home in silence. The wine bottle on the passenger seat shifted with every turn, untouched. My phone buzzed a few times. Notifications, maybe a text from a cousin already posting pictures of the prep. I didn't look. At a red light, I stared out the window and asked myself the question I didn't want to answer. When did I become a stranger in my own family? That night, I sat on my couch in complete stillness. The apartment around me was warm, soft-lit, quiet. I should have been in a noisy kitchen, reaching for a ladle, stealing bites of stuffing, asking if anyone remembered that time Dad burned the turkey in '09. But I was alone, forgotten, or maybe worse, excluded on purpose. Then my phone buzzed again. A message from Madison, my cousin, just a few words. "I thought you should know. Brittany told her mom you embarrass her." I stared at the screen. A coldness spread through my body that had nothing to do with the November air. So that's what it was, not misunderstanding, not some scheduling issue. It was shame. Shame of me. The sister who once called me her hero. And I knew something had shifted, something I couldn't unhear, unknow, or undo. I read Madison's message again. "Brittany told her mom you embarrass her." Each word felt like a pin pressing deeper into my skin. Embarrass. That word echoed louder than it should have. I'd heard it before. Never said directly, but felt in glances, in pauses, in sudden changes of subject when people asked what I did. But this time it wasn't subtle. This time it was intentional. The girl I used to braid hair for before school, the same sister I once walked 3 snowy blocks for just to hand-deliver her rent envelope because I didn't trust the post office to be fast enough. Now she was ashamed of me, and not behind closed doors. She had said it to Mom. Said it out loud. With the kind of comfort only people feel when they believe the room is already on their side. I sat there for a long time, my hands still curled around the edge of my phone, my thumbs trembling. I didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, I opened the folder on my laptop labeled Brittany Tuition, Private. It had every invoice, every confirmation email, every semester I'd paid for, sometimes in full, sometimes scraping from 3 different accounts to make it work. The screen blinked at me. Next payment due in 14 days, $18,740. I stared at that number. It wasn't new. I saw that figure every term. But this time, it didn't look like a responsibility. It looked like a question. A question no one had ever asked me. Why are you still paying? It wasn't that I wanted gratitude. I didn't need cards or phone calls or her friends knowing I'd sacrificed vacations and skipped bonuses to make sure she graduated without debt. I just wanted to believe. That it mattered. That it meant something. But to her, I was just a footnote. A convenient origin story she could quietly bury the moment she got close to someone whose parents wore blazers and used words like legacy. And the worst part? This wasn't new. I remembered visiting her dorm during sophomore year. I had a job site nearby, stopped by in my work uniform, patched sleeves, HVAC logo across the chest. She smiled when she saw me, then pulled me quickly into the hallway. "Can you change shirts?" she whispered. "Everyone here's in law school. It just looks weird." I laughed it off back then. Told myself she was young. Told myself she'd grow out of it. But she didn't grow out of it. She grew into it. That night, I made a decision, not out of spite, not even out of anger, but out of something much colder, clarity. I moved my cursor to the Remove Payment Method button. A pop-up appeared. "Are you sure you want to remove your payment method? This action cannot be undone." For the first time in years, my hands didn't shake. I clicked Confirm. The click was soft. barely audible, but inside me it sounded like a latch closing on a door I had kept open for far too long. 10 minutes later, the phone rang. Mom, then Brittany, then again. And again. I didn't pick up. Instead, I stared at the quiet apartment around me and asked one more question. What kind of love asks you to stay invisible? By the next morning, my phone looked like it had caught fire. 17 missed calls, 14 unread texts, a voicemail from Mom, 2 from Brittany. Then came the one message I knew was coming. What did you just do? The school said my tuition is unpaid. Your account disappeared. Call me back now. I stared at it blankly, reading it 3-4 times. Not a word about me. No, are you okay? No, can we talk? Just a command. Just panic. A few minutes later, Mom's message followed. Donna, you can't be this cruel to your sister. You know she has no one else but you. That sentence. God, that sentence. I stood in the middle of my kitchen holding my coffee like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. The heater hummed softly in the background, ironic really, considering I'd built my life keeping other people warm. And here I was, frozen. I didn't respond. Instead, I put on my boots, drove to a client site, Quinn and Harris Law Offices, and got to work checking airflow readings and duct pressure. But even with my gloves on, I could still feel my phone buzzing like a ticking bomb in my pocket. By noon, I gave in. I glanced at the screen. Mom. Again. I answered. Her voice was frantic. Donna, you can't just walk away like this. Do you know how panicked Brittany is right now? I inhaled slowly, kept my voice calm. I know, I said. And honestly, I think she should be panicking. Don't you think this is too harsh? Mom snapped. She's in her final year. What if she gets kicked out? I let out a quiet laugh, not out of joy, just exhaustion. Mom, Brittany is 23. She's an adult. If she's old enough to lie about who paid for her education, she's old enough to learn what happens when lies fall apart. You promised you'd support her until she graduated, Mom said, her tone cracking. I paused. No, I promised I'd help my sister. Then I let that hang. The sister I thought I had, the one who called me her role model, the one who thanked me back when she still believed working with your hands was honorable. You're being dramatic. I didn't yell, I didn't break, I just stopped pretending. I was never invited to Thanksgiving, Mom. I was excluded, hidden, because the people you chose to prioritize think I don't belong, and you agreed. You're taking this too personally. Too personally? I interrupted, my voice now sharp. You think it's personal to not be asked to show up? You think it's dramatic to no longer fund someone who actively pretends you don't exist? There was silence on the other end. Then, just like always, her voice softened, sweetened. You're the only one in this family who can help. Are you really going to abandon your sister? I closed my eyes. That word again. Abandon. I was abandoned the moment you decided her comfort mattered more than my dignity. A long pause. Then her final blow, her usual one. You've changed, I smiled bitterly. No, Mom. I finally stopped letting everyone else define who I'm allowed to be. I ended the call. And for once, I didn't feel guilt. I felt free. That night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I heard the familiar chime of a new message. It was from Brittany. Just one line. I can't believe you'd do this to me. I've lost everything. I stared at it for a while, and all I could think was, you lost me a long time ago. You just didn't notice until the payments stopped. The next morning, I woke up to silence. Not the kind that's peaceful. Not quite. But the kind that feels like the world is holding its breath, waiting to see what you'll do next. I didn't rush to check my phone. I didn't reach for guilt. I made coffee, sat at my desk, reviewed job orders for the week. By mid-morning, Madison called. Have you heard? She asked, her voice low. I closed my laptop. Heard what? Though something in my gut already knew. Brittany showed up at Jordan's house this morning. I blinked. Jordan? You mean Mason? No, Jordan's her ex, Madison said. Mason broke up with her. The words landed like a stone dropped into water, sudden and inevitable. He moved out this morning. Someone saw Brittany sitting on the curb outside Jordan's yard crying. I said nothing. Madison continued, voice careful. Mason found out about you, about the tuition. She told him her parents were paying for everything. When he learned it was you all along, he was shocked. My throat tightened, not from joy, not even from relief, but from something heavier, confirmation. Brittany hadn't just hidden me, she'd rewritten me out of her life entirely. She lied for 2 years, Donna. 2 years, 24 months of pretending. of telling dinner guests some faceless family fund had paid her way, and I just kept wiring money thinking I was giving her a future, never once realizing I was being erased from the story altogether. Later that evening, Madison called again. She met with Mason, she said, at that little cafe in Belmont. One of my friends works there. I didn't ask for details, but Madison gave them anyway. She wore a silk dress, full makeup, like she was trying to reclaim some image of perfection, but Mason didn't let her say much. I could see it. His face, calm but tired, hers, trying to smile and explain. He asked her why she never told him the truth about you, Madison said. She said she didn't want to seem like she was taking advantage, that it was complicated. That word again. Complicated. The most convenient excuse in the English language. But Mason didn't buy it. He said something I'll never forget. If you're mature enough to build a future, you should be mature enough to be grateful to the person who gave you the chance. I swallowed hard, and then he added, I can't love someone who's ashamed of their own family, because if today it's your sister, tomorrow it might be me. I leaned back in my chair and let the weight of that settle. Brittany had lost her tuition, now she'd lost her relationship, and the saddest part, she still didn't understand why. 3 days later, an email from Columbia arrived. Final notice. If tuition is not paid by January 10th, student Brittany Calloway will be automatically withdrawn from enrollment. I didn't forward it, didn't call, didn't warn. I simply closed the screen and kept sipping my tea. That night, my phone rang 6 times, all from Brittany. I didn't pick up. Then the messages came, rapid fire. I know I messed up. I was scared of being judged. Please don't do this to me. Do you not love me anymore? If I get kicked out, my future is over. Die. I sat still. The only thing moving was my breath. Slow, measured, present. I didn't reply. After the 10th call, I blocked her number. The next day, she tried again from another number. Then came the messages on email, Instagram, even LinkedIn. The last one said, if you don't answer, I'll come find. And she did. It was Monday morning. I had just settled into a strategy meeting with my tech team, 3 of us discussing a new HVAC contract with a hotel chain along the coast. I was explaining duct zoning for large open lobbies when the glass door to the office slammed open. The security chime went off. We all turned, and there she was, Brittany, standing in the doorway like the ghost of a storm. Mascara streaked across her face, hair half pulled, half loose, her heels caked in wet mud. I need to talk to my sister, she shouted. The room froze. I stood slowly. My team looked at me, wide-eyed. Brittany, I said, voice steady, this is a place of business. You don't get to cause a scene here. You're ruining my life, she shrieked. You can't just cut me off like nothing happened. Before I could answer, security had already stepped in. A calm but firm voice said, Ma'am, we need you to leave the building. Don't touch me, she barked, twisting away. I'm the sister of the woman who runs this place. I stepped forward, calm, unshaken. You're the sister of the woman who runs this place, I said softly, but that doesn't give you the right to break through doors and scream in front of my staff. She stared at me like I had slapped her. You're abandoning me, she shouted one last time. But no one in the room reacted. No one came to her side. No one looked sympathetic, just the sound of her heels clacking against the tile as she was guided outside. I didn't follow. I didn't explain. I went back to the table, cleared my throat, and said, Okay, where were we? That afternoon, the phone buzzed again. Mom, I let it ring. Then, because I already knew she'd keep trying, I answered. Her voice was trembling. What happened this morning? Brittany called me crying, said she was kicked out of your office. She's humiliated. I sipped water slowly. Do you know what it'll mean if she gets expelled? She added, voice cracking. I do, I said, and I think she needs to learn what that feels like. This isn't how family works, she snapped. You don't just turn your back. I didn't turn my back, I replied. I stood up. You're her sister, she whispered. I closed my eyes. I was her sister, but to her I've only ever been a credit card. You're being cruel. No, I said, calm as glass. I'm finally being kind to myself. She was quiet. Then, as always, her final card, I'm begging you. I paused, then took a slow breath. I didn't work my hands raw for 10 years to be someone's secret shame, I said. If she wants a future, she can find it without building it on my silence. I hung up. And this time I didn't shake. The next day Aunt Carol called, then Uncle Jeff. Even a high school friend I hadn't spoken to in 10 years messaged me on Facebook. Donna, is it true? Everyone's saying Brittany might get expelled, that you went too far. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. Because for the first time in my life, I understood something very clearly. You don't owe people kindness when all they've ever handed you is expectation, and family isn't a one-way street paved with guilt. In the weeks after the office incident, I waited for the storm. The relentless calls, the guilt-tripping voicemails, the long-winded texts about blood being thicker than water, and they came, just as I'd expected. You're being too cold. She's still your sister. People say you've changed. You don't care about family anymore. A year ago, those words would have broken me. Now, I just placed the phone face down on my desk, looked out the window, and let the wind rattle the pine trees. No more defending, no more apologizing, no more explaining why my boundaries made them uncomfortable. One morning in mid-December, Madison texted, "Just saw your mom and Brittany at the store. Looks like she dropped out, moved back home. Honestly, they both looked rough." I didn't reply, not out of cruelty, but because I didn't need to. Later that day she added, "Your mom still says it's your fault." I wasn't surprised. To Mom, accountability was always a puzzle she could hand off to someone else, and I'd always been the easiest piece to fit blame into. But that blame didn't stick anymore. Because while they were stuck in the loop, pointing fingers, dodging truths, I was starting something new. I took the money I used to spend on Brittany's tuition and reinvested it into my company, hired 2 more certified technicians, upgraded to new carbon monoxide testing equipment, redesigned the office, clean neutral tones, warm lighting, plants in every corner. Then came the coffee chain contract in the Pearl District. 3-year deal, 6 figures. For the first time, I worked not out of fear or duty, but out of love. No one rolled their eyes when I said I was an HVAC specialist. No one asked, "So, when are you getting a real job?" No one tried to shrink me down to something more presentable, and best of all, no one made me feel invisible. On Christmas Eve, I sat alone on my couch, wearing a moss green sweater, feet wrapped in a soft throw blanket. Outside, neighborhood lights twinkled through the rain. Somewhere in the distance, church bells echoed softly. I poured myself a glass of wine, white, crisp, just cold enough. I planned to watch a comedy. Something light. Something where the ending is always good. Then my phone buzzed. A message. From Mom. "Donna, Christmas just isn't the same without you. Everyone misses you. Call me." I stared at it for a long time. Maybe a few seconds. Maybe a lifetime. And I thought of all the Christmases before. The ones where I brought the little tree. Where I wrapped everyone's gifts. Where I paid for dinner with money I should have used for new tires or a weekend off. And still, I was never polished enough to sit next to a boyfriend's family. I took a breath. Then quietly, I deleted the message. Not because I didn't miss them. Not because I didn't love them. But because for the first time, I loved myself more. A few weeks after Christmas, the rain came harder. Portland in January always felt like a gray curtain pulled across the sky. But that day, in the middle of a storm, I received a letter. A real one. Handwritten, from my grandmother, Evelyn Calloway. She hadn't lived with us in years. After Grandpa passed, she moved to a little place in Salem. Quiet, warm, filled with tea and time. We didn't talk often. But she always remembered my birthday. And never once had she looked at me and asked why I didn't go to college. Never once had she said, "You'd look so much prettier in something softer." She only ever asked me, "Are you taking care of your hands, sweetheart? They've built so much." Her letter was short, slanted handwriting. "My dear Donna, I don't know exactly what's happened in the family, but I know this. When a woman like you finds the courage to set boundaries, many people will feel uncomfortable. Don't let that stop you. Who among them has ever sacrificed for you the way you have for them? I am proud of you, not because of the money you make, not because of the contracts you win, but because you have finally learned to protect your own heart." I read it 3 times. I didn't cry, I just felt seen. Fully. By someone who had no stake in controlling me.